Lots of planning and research goes into arranging the perfect holiday. Itineraries are mapped, flights and accommodations are booked, and we wait patiently to arrive at our dream destination. Finally, the big day arrives, and we excitedly head off on our much-anticipated trip. However, despite the best-laid plans, things sometimes go wrong. Often, we make simple mistakes, like leaving something at home, booking the wrong hotel, or missing transportation connections. Occasionally, mishaps occur that are beyond our control, and we often see tourists taking silly risks to get the perfect Instagram photo. But a few travelers had holiday mishaps that were so incredible that they not only made the news, but also went viral on social media. Number 10. An unexpected stowaway. Many of us have packed things in our suitcases by mistake for the trip home. The odd bath towel, book, or article of clothing can find its way into our luggage. Imagine the shock one Scotswoman received when she was unpacking her cases to find that a large Australian reptile had stowed away in her luggage. The woman had been visiting family in Queensland, Australia, when a 60-meter, 24-inch spotted python had appeared in her bedroom during a storm. A snake catcher was called, who searched for the reptile to no avail. It was assumed that the snake had slithered outside. A few days later, the woman packed up and returned home to Scotland. After a 40-hour flight from Brisbane to Glasgow, imagine her surprise when she unpacked her luggage and found the snake curled safely in one of her shoes. The snake had survived the 18,000-kilometer, 11,200-mile journey unharmed and had shed its skin during the hibernation. Fortunately, the Glasgow snake catcher was more successful in catching the python. He removed it to a wildlife sanctuary. Number 9. Spelling mistake. A lot of people spend their retirement years traveling around the world to see the sights, and a British grandmother, Lamenda Kingdon, is one of them. She was looking forward to taking a short break in the sunshine of Grenada in Spain, but a simple misunderstanding about spelling left her taking a much longer journey. Lamenda's travel agent misunderstood her as she tried to organize her vacation, and instead booked her on a plane to the Caribbean island of Grenada. Grenada is a beautiful place to visit and spend time, but not if your hotel is in a completely different country thousands of miles away. She'd already enjoyed her in-flight meal before she realized she was in the wrong flight and wasn't able to get off until the plane briefly stopped over in St. Lucia. Fortunately, Avios, the company who organized the flight, quickly arranged an alternative for her and managed to get her to Grenada a day later, along with a bottle of champagne and the promise of a future free holiday. Number 8. Have I forgotten something? We've all left something behind in the airport when traveling. The umbrella, the duty-free bags, maybe even a suitcase. In early 2019, flight controllers in Saudi Arabia initially thought the cabin crew was joking when they made a request to turn back. The flight from Saudi Arabia to Malaysia was forced to turn around when a passenger realized she had left her baby in the boarding terminal. Imagine going through the check-in, settling into your seat, listening to the safety procedures, and taking off before it occurred to you that you may be missing something. Reportedly, the flight was in midair when the mother realized she had forgotten to bring her baby with her and requested that the flight be turned back.
Kevin's not here.
What?
The child was still sitting safely in the boarding area when the flight landed. Fortunately, the child was unharmed and the mother and baby were reunited. Number 7. Illness breakout. Every year, a lot of people travel to the Caribbean island of Grenada by booking passage on a ship and setting off to tour the seas. On a Caribbean cruise, floating on the waves on a modern cruise liner should be the peak of luxury. But if an illness breaks out on board and begins to spread, it quickly turns into a nightmare. The Royal Caribbean vessel Oasis of the Seas was in the middle of a journey through the islands when one of the passengers on board contracted the norovirus, a highly virulent sickness that can lead to chronic nausea. Because it's passed on very easily, the only effective cure was to quarantine the entire boat with 9,000 passengers and confined the 500 of them on board to their cabins until the sickness passed. The cruise liner had to send out for more doctors to be brought onto the ship from the shores, and nobody was allowed to leave until the medical professionals were satisfied that the infections had passed. Number 6. Ice Queen. When we are on holiday, we are always on the lookout for that spectacular photo opportunity. One Texas grandma's great holiday snap recently turned into a major rescue operation which went viral on social media. While vacationing in Iceland, she and her son were strolling along the beach when they came across a large chunk of ice shaped like a throne. This looked like an ideal photo opportunity. The woman perched herself regally on the ice chunk to pose for the shot. A freak wave suddenly broke around her, sweeping the iceberg out to sea, with the grandma clinging precariously to her perch. Her family initially thought it was a prank when her son posted photos of Granny floating out to sea on her ice throne and the rescue attempt which followed. Mounting an operation to save the woman from sea, the Coast Guard returned her safely to the shore. Number 5. We've reached our destination? We've all made travel mistakes, getting on the wrong train or bus, missing our stop, or missing the plane altogether. But at least we expect our aircraft crew to get it right, don't we? Not so in the case of a plane load of surprised Londoners heading for Dusseldorf in Germany. Many of the passengers aboard the British Airlines flight noticed the unusual scenery below. Some took to Google Maps and were confused to see that they were headed north toward Scotland. It wasn't until the plane landed in Edinburgh that the mistake became apparent. Incorrect flight details had been provided, and the crew had believed they were headed to Edinburgh. A show of hands indicated that everyone aboard had expected to land at Dusseldorf. After several hours' delay, the flight was redirected to the correct destination. Number 4. Boxing kangaroo. Soaring with the eagles gives paragliders a bird's-eye view of the world, often captured on the GoPro cameras attached to their helmets. Most experienced paragliders are aware of the risks associated with changes in weather conditions, inappropriate landings, and unfortunate encounters with wildlife. However, one Australian paraglider's GoPro film went viral as he captured an unexpected encounter when touching down. After a morning paragliding near Canberra in the Australian Capital Territory, the man floated into a nearby national park to land. He was initially delighted to see a couple of kangaroos hopping over to say hello, or so he thought. Unfortunately, the roos weren't as pleased to see the man invading their territory. One of them came over to deliver a few well-timed punches to the unsuspecting paraglider before retreating into the bush. A good example of where the term boxing kangaroo came from. Number 3. Out of cruise. The latest and best cruise ships have all kinds of safety equipment and precautions on board, but ultimately you are still surrounded by water and one wrong step away from falling over the edge. The cruise ship has hosted its fair share of parties, and at one of them, a lady indulged in more than her fair share of cocktails at the bar. She was trying to find her way back to the cabin when she took a wrong turn and fell out of a hatch from which the technical ladder is deployed. Miraculously, her legs caught and tangled with the mooring ropes hanging from the ladder and stopped her from plunging into the sea below. She was quickly pulled back to safety and went to sleep her shock off in her cabin. We bet she stayed away from the bar for the rest of the trip. Number 2. Stuck at 400 feet above. The London Eye is one of London's top attractions. The attraction came to a juddering halt on one Saturday at 7:21 p.m. in 2016, leaving some stuck 400 feet in the air as engineers tried to fix it with ambulances waiting on the ground. A trip usually takes 30 minutes, but it wasn't until 10:40 p.m. that everyone had disembarked from the 32-pod wheel, which can hold up to 800 passengers. Firefighters were called, along with the ambulance service, after the iconic Ferris wheel ground to a halt with people stuck inside the capsules. A couple stuck at the top of the London Eye for an hour and a half on their 2-year anniversary, one writer said on social media. Others shared photographs of passengers in thermal blankets, saying the ride was freezing cold as the air conditioning would not switch off. Stranded in capsule for more than an hour, emergency blankets out, no food or milk for babies. Thankfully, the London Eye mechanical team rectified the problem and got the wheel turning so all guests could safely disembark. Number 1. Royal Mishap. When you name a ship after British royal family, and that royal has turned up to launch the boat in person, you should probably take extra care to make sure it's in perfect working order before it leaves the port, because otherwise, it's embarrassing for everybody. Unfortunately, somebody let the side down with the 140,000-ton Princess Royal. The Duchess of Cambridge herself was present at the launch of the cruise liner. Unfortunately, it was beset with plumbing and electrical problems from the moment it set sail, resulting in a 12-day luxury tour being cut short to just one. and the 3,500 passengers on board being stranded for hours in Mykonos when the mechanism used to lift the anchor completely failed. When they eventually started moving again, the lights all went out and the air conditioning shut down. Ships of this size have backup generators on board in case of emergencies, and they were enough to get the essentials working so the vessel could crawl back to port. But it's safe to say the voyage didn't exactly meet with the royal standard. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoy the video, please let me know by clicking the like button. Do share, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can catch up my next video.